Welcome back to the show. You guys heard me over on Jerry Scarlato's podcast, The Good Wolf Project, the other day, and it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. I'm like, Jerry, you got to come over to Future Factory and do what you do over here. It's just great to have you, Jerry. Welcome.
And here we are, brother. I'm so glad that we're able to do this in the same week where we're having another conversation, which I greatly appreciate because I got so much out of our conversation over on my show that I knew that we just need to carry it forward. So here we are bringing it to your audience.
I love it. I love the premise of your show, right? When you look at the good wolf in us, and that comes from an old proverb, but I think it makes sense to start with the proverb a little bit.
Yeah, so I can even back up a little further where the idea of even naming the show that came from. So I had a fitness studio for 10 years called Thriveology. And whenever I first started it, I was training a group of people and we were just kind of like bantering back and forth. And one of them said something about the pack. And I'm like, what'd you just say? And he's like, oh, we're the pack. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. We're the pack. And all of a sudden this thing had been created. We were the pack. We literally got big, 5 by 3 foot letters made of the pack up on the wall and a wolf in the middle of it. So suddenly it was just created. So when I decided to create a podcast and put a podcast out, that same client had printed out this proverb for me and had it put up. And I was like, I know what I need to name the podcast. As soon as the idea came to my head, I'm like, I know what I need to name this because I know what the journey of life is. This is what I believe the journey of life is. No matter what you're trying to accomplish in life, this is the journey. It is this. So the proverb goes back to an old Cherokee proverb where a Cherokee chief and his grandson are sitting around a campfire and they're having a conversation. And the Cherokee chief is telling his grandson that there's 2 wolves inside of all of us. There's a bad wolf that's filled with hate and envy and greed. And there's a good wolf that's filled with love and care and compassion and joy. And empathy and all these things. And they're constantly fighting and they're constantly going at it, just one after another, day after day, constantly fighting. And the grandson sits there for a while and he's sitting there thinking and he's staring at the fire. And finally he looks up at his grandpa, at the chief, and he goes, well, Grandpa, if they're constantly fighting and they're constantly going at it, which wolf wins? And the grandpa says, the one you feed. So the Good Wolf Project literally comes from the idea that we are an ongoing project, that we are constantly trying to feed the best version of ourselves every single day, moment to moment, most of the time. And it's an ongoing thing. This is exactly what you and I talked about for most of our conversation the other day, was that we're the biggest barrier. And we have to recognize that it's an ongoing thing. You just have to constantly be working on yourself. It's not something that just happens and all of a sudden everything's good and you can stop. It's an ongoing project.
I love the conversation. This planet is a playground, right? It's like this place that we can do and create. It's the ultimate masterpiece of play. And the one that I come to, when I come to this planet, my early years, I'm like a little puppy, right? Just discovering and smelling and running around and tasting and eating. And it's a fun game, right? When you're a little kid, you have imagination and all the stuff that you do. And, I think a lot of us get knocked off of that journey, that discovery journey, that one that's wonderful, that gets to play on the planet and see things that aren't there. I mean, you ever watch little kids play and they see stuff that's not even in the air and they're creating it, but somewhere, I don't know, life and some of our upbringing, some of that stuff cuts that spirit out, right? That one inside of us, that's that adventure, that good wolf, right? And some of that stuff says, no, you're not allowed to think that way. You shouldn't think, you shouldn't be making stuff up. And, and those are people feeding my bad wolf. And, somewhere in there, all that discovery gets quelled and, life becomes pretty tough. And, it's a tough spot to be in.
Well, and life is tough. And I think we want life to be easy. But life is going to be tough. But I do think we make it tougher than also it needs to be. And it's funny that you bring this up because I had a conversation yesterday with a guy named Dr. Kyle Daigle Smart guy, doctor of chiropractic, specializes in neurological rehab, super smart dude, has 16 businesses. I'm like, dude, what in the world? Like, all in different industries too. I was like, dude, I'm amazed. At any rate, he said this, and I completely agree with him, is at an early age, society starts to tell us that we need to play it safe,
That's right.
that we need to play it safe. And it starts real early, like at 1 or 2 years old. They, whenever we go towards something that may hurt us, no matter if it's something as dangerous as a fire or something less dangerous, like, I don't know, running into a wall. If we go towards something that hurt us, our parents tell us, stop, don't do that.
Right.
Don't, you're going to get hurt. Like, they don't even let us figure it out for ourselves. Now, fire is one thing for sure, but they don't let us figure it out for ourselves. They try and stop us and protect us. Now, of course, the parents are just trying to protect the child. I totally get that. And I'm not, that it is what it is. It's an innate thing that the parent's trying to do, but it starts early. Now, then when you get into your late teen and early 20s, when you're going into a job, people start telling you again to play it safe. Make sure that you get a good corporate job, a good paying job that gives you good benefits. Make sure that you stay there for a long time, and that, they're there, and that way you're safe and you don't have to worry about taking the risk. Start a family early, get settled in, get settled down. Like, you're literally, your life is laid out for you essentially. So from a very early age, we're like, our imagination is taken away from us, if you will, because imagination, if you will, is just uncertainty at a certain level. Like, it's just, let me pretend all of these things and let me play out all these things. And maybe eventually some of them actually come true. And that's what creativity and entrepreneurship is about. But when you're constantly told from an early age that you need to play it safe, that you shouldn't go toward this thing that might hurt you, that becomes ingrained. I mean, it literally becomes a part of you, and that becomes super challenging to overcome at later ages. It's hard to appreciate, but it becomes super challenging to overcome that as an adult. That you need to be safe.
Well, and there's layers upon layers there, right? I mean, if you really look at the layer, my job as a parent is to do one thing: is make sure my child doesn't die, right? I mean, ultimately, that's my job, right? I mean, if I really look at it. Now, somewhere in there, I watched my parents, and they also wanted me to obey, right? Like there was some need. I don't know if that came from religious belief or religious dogma that somehow or another we have this greater being called, this higher power. We need to obey, and part of being a good parent was having your children obey you. And then all of a sudden, that became part of the ritual, right? Part of the get my kid to obey me, right? If they obey me, then I'm a better parent, right? And it was like obeying. Wherever they got that from, and I don't want to put down their religious beliefs, but some of that dogma, some of that stuff that came in, starts in there and starts quelling. All right, now I need a child to obey me, and again, I'm putting another layer of stuff on there. Where ultimately, my job is to have them be these creative beings that survive, right? I mean, obviously, we come out, we're not ready to survive, and as a parent, I want to make sure they get fed and don't die, but then I start putting, survive. Then I have obey. Then I have, extreme, where I start going to extreme safety, because all the stories that they carry, right? I mean, all the, when you go from, it's okay to have a bump and bruise, right? Some of that stuff is a gift, right? Some of the hardship, right? I would tell you that my mother didn't want me to hurt at all, right? She fed me every time I barked, every time I needed something, boom, there was food in my mouth. And, and maybe some of the pain that we go through learning is actually what we need to do to be a really creative being, right? Some of that pain is actually okay, right?
Well, and this is a really important conversation as well. We've already hit on a couple of extremely important points. You and I talked about this during our conversation on the Good Wolf Project. You talked a little bit about your dad and how you had to forgive your dad for being who he was. And in the same way, like I sought love from my dad. My dad loved me, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but I sought love from my dad. And as an adult, it's hard to recognize and appreciate how much that affects you, the parent that you sought love from, because my dad was the same way. He wanted me to be obedient, and he wanted me to follow his rules and do what he wanted to do, what he wanted me to do. And when I look at that and I look at the way he was brought up, he was the opposite. His parents had no obedience to him. They were divorced early. His mom never made him do anything. Not that she let him run amok. He wasn't like a gangster or anything like that, but like he did whatever he wanted to do, stayed out late, did whatever. So for me and my sisters, he wanted the opposite for us. He wanted us to have structure. He wanted obedience. So what's hard to appreciate as an adult, because a lot of adults blame their parents for things,
Yeah.
and they get themselves stuck in a situation because they think it's their parents' fault. But you have to understand that your parents were raised by somebody, and those parents were raised by somebody, and they were raised by somebody, and on down the line. And so all they're ever doing is adapting to their own childhood in the way that they were raised. And that's what you're going to do with your kids, and that's what your kids are going to do with their kids. But it's hard to appreciate as the person, as the individual. But the more you can look at that and appreciate that, the more you can start to separate that and let that go, and then become your own person.
I mean, as long as it's my mom's fault, my dad's fault, as long as it's my world's fault or my neighborhood's fault or how much money we make's fault, I'm a victim, right? When I'm, and maybe being a victim served us some way. Hey, you felt sorry for me, or I got some pity, or whatever it was. But ultimately, being a victim does nothing but stop my ability to be creative, right? When I let them off the hook and go, yeah, my dad had no book. Look, ultimately, my dad was trying to survive, right? We're humans, right? Our whole goal is like wolves, right? Our goal is to survive and survive well. And he thought my dad thought being a gangster was the way to survive. And that the men in his life and the role models in his life said that. Hey, I saw, I can just imagine. I was young when he died, so I make stuff up. But I can just imagine that, the wealthy guys and the guys who had power, there was, when you looked at them, that had to be a wonderful experience, right? To see these powerful beings and wanted to emulate that. And, that's the role models we get. And somewhere in there, he thought that that's how he was going to feed us. Because, isn't that what parents want? We ultimately want what's best. Now, sometimes it doesn't come off that way, right? I mean, I'm guessing, I know that when he gets killed by a police officer, I'm really resentful at that as a child, right? I spent a lot of years really mad about that, but he didn't know he was going to die. He didn't. My guess is that his role models were broken also. So now he comes to that relationship with me, and I'm left empty. I don't have a dad to hang out with, and right now I got to do some work on that. I can be really mad about it, right? I can really be mad and go, oh my God, of course my life sucked because my dad died. Or I can go, yeah, he did what he thought was the best. And when we let our parents off the hook, right, and we take now we have agency. Now we go, all right, now we want to do in life. If my parents weren't the fault, how can my thoughts, actions, and behaviors be causing the life that I'm living?
Well, very true. And on the other end of that, like there's two people in every interaction. It's not to say as a 15-year-old or 12-year-old or whatever that you're expected to be the higher mind in an interaction with an adult. But nonetheless, there's always two people, and at a certain level, you are also involved in the interaction. So, but the parent is, and again, I understand that this is hard for people to appreciate, especially anybody who's been physically abused. Like I can't imagine going through anything like that. But the parent is doing the best that they can do, um, and they're raising you and showing you love, care, whatever. Like they're showing you their form of love and care with the best that they have, as hard as that is to see. Like as hard as that is to comprehend for somebody who potentially has a parent who physically abused them or mentally abused them, verbally, whatever, in some way. That's tough. That is super challenging for sure. But if you look at how, again, they were raised, you may be able to better understand why they are the way they are. And that's the hard part to see. How were they raised? What did their upbringing look like? How did their parents treat them? How did their environment form who they are? And then you can start to pull apart the action from the person. And I think that's a big part of that.
I mean, I think we can do that with our society, right? I mean, look, humans have done some amazing stuff. I mean, look, when I look around and see the world and where I live and all the things we have, it's amazing the things I have in my life. But humans have done some really dumb things also. I mean, we've had wars and Holocaust and slavery and, you but at the time, the people who did that, they believed that what they were doing is right. Now, here, from where we stand today, we look back and go, really? We think that's right? Bloodletting as a doctor, we thought bleaching a human being but here at the time, that was modern medicine, right? The wars that were created and look, people, the religious beliefs and all the different things that have happened to cause that. Standing back from it here, it's kind of easy to look back and go, yeah, I'm not sure you guys were ridiculous. The Holocaust and stuff that happened there, but somehow or another, there was some belief that they fought for, they were willing to go to war for, that they're there. Now, being mad at that or being angry at that and holding on to that like somehow or another, that is what's stopping my ability to grow is in that I believe is where we get stuck. And for sure, those things were bad. I'm not for a second trying to say, hey, let's forget about it, right? Play out. But now we need to move forward, right? What I want to do is I want to create a little bit of space between what happened and what's possible if I let go of it, right? If I start to look at, hey, I am not the cause of my father's death. I'm not going to be a bad person because my father was a gangster, right? Because my father was a gangster does not mean I have to be that way. And because my father died young, doesn't mean I have to do that. And if I start to let him go, and hey, that's what he thought was right. Now I start to create a possibility for my life that's different and go, all right, I want to be here for my grandkids, right? So today I start putting thoughts, action, behaviors in there that support that. Like, how do I eat? How do I work out? How do I live, right? What are the behaviors that we're going to create a possibility of me being around a big table with all those beautiful grandkids, right? I see this vision of my grandkids being there, just, that feeling of having that family that I've supported and be there. Now, will it be perfect? No, but look, between here and there, there'll be a mess. I'll make a few messes between here and there. Right. You can count on that. But, today there's a space in there that says, I'd like to create a family that knows that they're loved and they're cared for and maybe do better than my father could have, right? He didn't know any better. And I'm hoping my kids come by. And by the way, they're already doing better than I am. They're way more intelligent today than I ever was. And I feel like we can get into that whole format.
Well, and that goes back to, there's a saying that everything looks like failure in the middle. And when it comes to life, like, you don't know what it looks like until you get to the end, really. But it's always going to look and feel, not always, but like, it's going to feel like failure a lot. A lot of it is going to feel like failure. And failure doesn't mean like big, huge failures. It could mean a momentary lapse in judgment or whatever. But that goes back to this choice of making moment to moment decisions, being aware moment to moment of what you're trying to accomplish and where you're trying to move, recognizing that you did make a mistake and that you're not a bad person because you made a mistake, that you're human and you're fallible. Welcome to the human experience. Like, that's what it's about, right? Like, you're a fallible being, and that's who we all are. So many people judge even themselves, which makes it worse. You judge yourself for screwing up, and that makes it worse, and you don't recognize that. But you're just a human being, and you're trying to do your best. But if you recognize that you're trying to do your best, you can then make a new decision in the next moment.
Well, therein lies the all the stuff we carry. When you say, "Are you doing your best?" When I say that, when you say, "Are you doing your best?" automatically, I go back to some religious thing or my parents scolding me, and it triggers something. Now, look, we're growing an idea, like whatever that is. I want to grow a family. I want to get to having this table with my kids around it. Between the two of those, I have to walk through some glass. Like, creation comes with a mess, right? I mean, new ideas come with somewhat of a mess to get through. It's not always painful, but it comes with some pain, right? I mean, if it was easy, it would be done already. But, in order to move forward, and that's why I would say the world today has to be better than it was before, right? We're always getting better. Now, why I believe that is because, no matter what I do, um, if it was good, I wouldn't change it, right? I'd leave it the way it is. But if I'm going to change something, right, to try to go somewhere different, like it's not working, now I want to change the idea. That comes with a little bit of work, and maybe even walking through some broken glass, or maybe even jumping the abyss of fire and ice, right? And maybe, right, maybe it comes with some of that, and you're going to feel foolish, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to mess it up, and right. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the experience of it that you're talking about. Like it's a mess in the middle.
Well, and I think going back to the what we talked about in the beginning, how society teaches us very early to be safe, how society teaches us very early to make safe decisions. Um, when it comes to that, what we don't recognize later on down the road, it's actually the hardships and the challenges and the obstacles that make us. It's those things that both make us, that make quote success, and that make life. And we don't recognize that because we've been taught so much to avoid challenges and obstacles and things that are hard and things that might hurt us. But it's literally like it's without that, without some level of challenge. Like think about exercise and fitness. I've done that my whole life since I was 13 years old. I'm 40 now, so 27 years I've been in the gym. The weight room literally is the perfect analogy for this. When you go in the weight room, you lift weights, you tear your muscles down, which is literally what's happening. You are tearing your muscles apart, depending on how hard you're working out, of course. But you're tearing your muscles apart, you let them recover, and they get stronger. And that's what happens whenever you are confronted with any obstacle, with any challenge. If you run away from it, you don't, you're not, nothing happens. You don't have the opportunity to then grow past that and potentially build something beyond that. When you run away from it, you stay the same, and really you regress because you're moving away from something that's challenging. But when you confront it and you move toward it, you build on top of yourself. You become literally a different version of yourself on the other side of that obstacle.
Yeah, look, if we all knew that on the other side of great pain and huge work, there's a gift. And the gift is this amazing life that you get. I think all of us would go through it. But look, no one pulls us aside and says, hey, you're going to go through hardships. And the truth is, when you're going through a hardship, that's really the gold in life. No one says that. We try to avoid it with everything we have. And I think you're right on. I mean, that's the part, I was listening to Eddie Pinero, one of my favorite podcasters. He was talking about a bird pecking its way out of a shell, and someone coming by and opening that shell for him, the bird, and it loses its ability to fly, right? By pecking its way out of the shell, ultimately, that's what gets the muscles pumping. It gets blood into those muscles. That's really what creates it. And that's kind of like our life, right? I mean, as I work through these problems, right, and there's where when I join a community of people that work together to solve the problems, I get hope, I get some wisdom, I get encouragement, right? If I surround myself with those people who live a life that says, yeah, we're not perfect, but we're gonna progress, not perfection, but we're here for each other. And hey, by the way, you're gonna mess things up, and we're still gonna love you, right? Even we're not here to judge you for your mistakes. In fact, when you have them, we're here to say, yeah, good job. You had a mistake, right? And that's where I think that some of our today's politics and some of our today's media, it's creating this kind of shaming everybody for everything they do wrong, and oh, look what this guy did and look what that guy did. It becomes this news that we I don't know if it at first maybe makes us feel better about ourselves because we're not that bad. I used to watch what was that show with Frank? It was a show, the Chicago family. Oh my God, they were a mess. Come on, what was it? It was a not a sitcom, a reality show on HBO, and Frank. I can't believe
Was that The Sopranos, or was
not,
it?
not,
It was
not Sabrina. No, come on. Let's get, come on. What's the name of the show? Listen, you remember the name of the show? It's Chicago-based family. It's got, his father's name was Frank. He was like just drunk. It was come on. I can't believe I had a blank here. See if you can find it on It was HBO comedy, and maybe reality. Not Shameless. There you go. Look.
Shameless.
Here, I used to watch Frank, the father. That I go, hey, look, I'm not that bad, right? No matter how bad I was, Frank was a mess, and I'm like, hey, at least he made me feel better about my fatherhood. Right?
No doubt.
Right?
Well, and that can be super helpful on one end, but at the same time, like, it lowers standards on the other end, right?
That's
so
right. That's right.
when you look at something, I think that's helpful when you're like, you're trying to do something, you're trying to make progress in your life, and you feel like you're just like stuck in mud, and you feel like you're not going anywhere. And then you happen to walk by somebody and they're not in good shape, and you're not that you're like celebrating that they're not in good shape, but you're like, well, okay, so it could be worse. Like, I could be worse. I could be on the street. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. It's a TV show, and I could be in that situation. I could be just a complete mess. So certainly there's that. But I think on the other end of that, and this is where, like, fitness, I always go back to that as an analogy, because I think it's a perfect analogy for life. The reason that so many people are healthy and diseased, one of the reasons that so many people are healthy, unhealthy and diseased nowadays, is because our standard is so low, and everyone is comparing themselves to a low standard. They're like, well, all I have to do is meet this low standard. So I just got to be able to go walk 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, 3 times a week, and I'm in shape. Well, no, that's not being in shape. Like, we keep lowering that standard of fitness. And as we lower our standards of fitness as society, our whole health continues to come down. And if you look at that from a financial standpoint, the same thing happens. Well, everyone else is in debt too. Everyone else has credit card debt. Everyone else is unhappy with their job. Everyone else is blah, 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 whatever. So I'm not that bad off if I'm not completely unhappy with my job. I just hate it sometimes, not all the times. Or if I'm just kind of in debt, but not completely drowning in debt. So, like, the whole standard of society comes down because everyone's going, well, I'm not that bad off. So I think it's helpful on one end, but on the other end, you have to then decide what you want for yourself. And that's the step that people don't take after the fact.
That's right. There's a whole break in that. Here, when I judge myself by others, right? When I judge my inside by other people's outsides, ultimately there is, that's a real bad way of being, right? There's a, today I got to work on me, right? I got to look at me internal. It's not about Frank and judging myself by Frank and Shameless. It's about, all right, how's Anthony doing? All right. How does he feel about himself? When I got to look at myself and go, all right, how do I really feel about myself? It's never been about the outside judgment. That you're right. I think you're right on. A lot of us are using that outside stuff. Hey, well, Frank's there, and we stop at that and don't do the work to go, all right, I want to go to the gym. And maybe you're having a hard time going to the gym. And I was talking to a guy the other day who just got done with some knee surgery. And he's like, I can't get off the couch. I haven't been able to get back to the gym. I'm like, look, brother, just here, let's try to lower the bar to whatever you can do. I mean, literally lower the bar to, look, if it's just walking around your house a little bit more, right? Do 10 steps around the house, right? Do 10 laps literally around your house. And if then it's a matter of, can you make it around the block? Just get 1 lap around the block. Here, walk 1 lap around the block. And if getting started or getting out of that funk means it might be the simplest of tasks to get us there. Sometimes I want it to be, well, if I'm not 6-pack abs and 100%, I'm not doing anything, right? There's like a mentality of, if I can't have it all, I'm not doing any of it. But I think there's the gift is looking at it and going, all right, I'm not going to be perfect, but let's get some progress. Just some progress. What is that progress?
So I'll tell you my story from the last year or so, excuse me, which I think we may have talked a little bit about this on my show, and that'll I'll explain why that's relevant to what we're talking about. Which in fitness, I totally agree. It's an easy. Most people compare themselves to what they used to be, right? Well, this is the way that I was in high school or in college. Well, you're not in high school or college anymore, so get over it and start where you are today. So that's that's what you need to do in fitness. But in life, it's the same thing. So last year, on Thanksgiving Day, I closed the gym. And the big reason I closed the gym was because I was in the process of getting a divorce. Closed the gym on Thanksgiving Day and finalized the divorce in, I think, January or February. So I had the gym for 10 years and I was married for 10 years. So big changes in life, like at 40 years old, big changes.
Yeah.
And of course, after all those changes are done, I am going back and forth, going, okay, here I am. I'm the one that basically started these changes. I knew that they needed to be made. My wife and I, we were having trouble being coherent for years. It wasn't like hey, we had a bad day kind of thing. Like for years, we were having trouble being coherent. The gym, it was just like, because of my wife and this, that, and the other thing, and all these things started to pile on. I'm like, all right, we just got to throw the bag over the fence and make a move and move forward. So I had made these choices. But once they were done, I'm like, well, now I got to start over. And now I got to begin, I got to begin again. I know I want to have kids. I got to find a wife and I got to have kids. And I got to figure out, do I want to start up a business? Do I want to buy a business? Do I want to go work for somebody? Like, what does that look like? So, I literally had to reframe my mind to begin from the beginning at 40 years old, which most people would go, that's nuts. Why wouldn't you just keep going? Well, because I knew that there was something better on the other side of it. So I had to make this big change. I had to create this obstacle, basically. I created this hardship in my life, this big hardship, stacked these things on top of each other and started from the beginning. So now I have to take my mind and bring it to, okay, I'm starting over. Now what do I do? Which is hard when you're used to building from where you are. Like I had the gym for 10 years and I'm used to okay, what's the next step for the gym? What's the next thing that I need to do in order to move what's the next project? How do we get more rep? What's the next thing we're going to do for the new year so that we can get more people in the door? So it's just a different mindset. And and it took months, by the way. It wasn't like automatically my mind was like, hey, everything's good. We can start over. It took months for me to finally get to the point where I'm like, okay, I see where I am. And now I can move forward from here.
Divorce was one of those ones that it just rocks our boat a little bit. Right? I mean, like our whole worldview changes, right? I got this person I'm supposed to be with forever. Now we can't communicate. Things are breaking apart. Everything I loved about the person, I start to hate about the person. And coming out of divorce for most of us is really this rock the boat rock. It's a little bit level above most of the other. It's a structural fracture, right? Where the structure, this person, my Mr. or Mrs. Forever is now not Mr. or Mrs. Forever. And all of my gravity changes for a minute, right? And it's not uncommon. I think that's a lot of us. We don't give ourselves a break to go, look, we're going to rock our boat. It's going to take us a year to get back into. It'd be great to go, hey, I'll be right back in about a year. Let me just get my feet back on the ground. Unfortunately, life doesn't let us. We still got bills and taxes and things coming at us, and now we're trying to operate with this big structural fracture in our life. And we feel awkward, like, oh my God, I feel crazy. Life sucks. And you got a lot of anger and frustration and pain that's got to come through. All of that stuff while you're trying to live life on top of that, right? We're literally on top of that SOB, and I can't believe that person, and I can't all the things that come with the pain of divorce, and and then that feeling of just feeling a little crazy, but as we get through it, right? So all of a sudden, hopefully we get some friends around us and people around us to go, all right, look, you're going to go through this and it's okay. And we love you. And it's okay to be just a little bit stuck through this. And hey, we got your hand. We're going to walk through. The only way to get through hell is keep freaking walking, right? I got to walk through this and reinvent myself. And now look, if I get to build that as a playground, great. right? If I play it like I get to be anything I want now, right? I let go of that baggage. It doesn't feel that way when you're going through lawyers and budgets and they're taking your money and you're broke. And I mean, divorce, it comes with a whole bunch of other people attacking your happiness. At least for me, it did. I went through,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, every time a lawyer would call, my heartbeat would go up, and I knew how much that was costing me, and I knew, just, and then the things that you say to each other in divorce are, it's crazy. I can't imagine. I love this person as much as I loved them for all those years, and then all of a sudden now I'm looking at them like they're the devil, and right. I mean, like it rocks our gravity.
oh, for sure. I mean, it is tough. Like I said, I'm the one that started the process. Our relationship was super interesting, and I'll play this out because I think that it's relevant. I believe it's relevant for a number of people. We, for a long time, we were never like, it was just never coherent. There were some times where everything was okay. And then there were some times where it's like, we never got along. We bantered back and forth for no apparent reason. It was stupid, blah, blah, blah. And that was the way that our relationship was for probably the last 4 or 5 years, kind of on that road. So not bad enough where it's like, hey, this needs to end, but also like, okay, I could just keep sucking it up and keep moving forward if I really needed to. And that's really what I did, honestly, for the last 2 years, was like, oh, I'll just keep going forward, and I'll focus more on the gym, and the relationship will be what it is. Maybe it'll figure itself out. I don't know. I'll put in some effort, blah, 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 whatever. I think a lot of people find themselves in a situation, whether that's with the business, whether that's with the relationship, where it's like, it's not bad enough, but they know they know it could be better. And they know that if they made a big change, like drop the relationship, drop the business, and moved in a different direction, that it would be better. But because it's not bad enough, they don't make that change. They don't take that step.
Like it's not, it's okay, right? Maybe even, I would even say sometimes not knowing that it could be, I think realizing how bad it is takes a minute, because there's some self-doubt. Are we sure this is bad, right?
Well, and people, what we don't recognize is like we get comfortable in the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't matter again if it's just kind of like a wavering situation. You get comfortable with that. You get comfortable with the person. You get comfortable with the circumstances. You get comfortable with everything around you. And comfort doesn't mean happy, but it means comfortable. You get used to the routine of the relationship and the banter and so on and so forth. So for me, whenever we separated and like it was, we were going through the process and everything, there were some times where I was like, I don't know. It might just be easier if I just went back. And easier really meant I wouldn't have to deal with this part of it. That's what it really meant, because I knew what that looked like. I knew what that life looked like, and I was used to that life. And of course, on the other side of it, I made some assumptions on what it might look like, but I can't be too sure, right? Once we're divorced and once things are over, I can guess what it's going to look like, but I can't be 100% positive. So it's a little scary.
Yeah, but how about also you have society and tradition and religion all saying to you, no, you're married forever, and you're Jerry, you're a bad man for getting divorced from this woman that you're having a hard time living with. You're a bad man, right? Like I don't know. I'm going to say, Anthony, you're a bad man for getting, and that ability to release that was right, because like I'm carrying all of my society and traditions and religion, all that stuff into that conversation. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the wrong one. Oh no, but listen, I'm having a bad time in this marriage, or we don't have much love, or we don't talk to each other. I don't dance with her. I don't get excited when she walks in the room, right? And if or I'm being abused, or I'm whatever that is that you were going through that says this isn't the right one. You can feel it on a cellular level, right? And now releasing that though, and stepping through all that dogma and crap, it takes a second. I think now that you're through that, now there's this opening that happens, and it takes a minute. Like I felt like for me, those first, few months of divorce, maybe in the first year of divorce, was a little bit of a mess, right? And I was like, did I mess up my kids? Oh my God, am I messing this whole thing up? Did I make a mistake? Am I a bad person? I don't know. But had I not gone through that, today I'm in love. I cherish the woman that I live with, right? Every time I see her, my eyes light up, right? Is it perfect? No. Do we argue? Yeah, we're two humans that walk on this planet. But I wouldn't have what I have today had I not let go of, whatever that was, that, wherever we were at before. So, yeah, I feel you. I feel that, right? Getting through that next piece, and then, all right, who's the right person, right? Is this a next person I get to discover with, or am I going to bring with me the problems I had in that marriage? Now, for me, part of that was I messed up that marriage drinking, right? I was a raging alcoholic, and I was cheating, and like I knew that in order for me to be successful in this marriage, like the drinker didn't work, right? I had to do some real work here. I had to, like in the beginning time when I first met her, I was still drinking, and I can't believe she stuck it out with me as I went through that piece. And there was a gift in that. Like all of a sudden, I got to get sober, and those first years of sobriety were a little bit of wobble, but then possibility kicked in, and then clarity kicked in, and then I wanted to be a better husband, right? I couldn't wait to be a better husband. So I think that's a lot of the discovery that we go through when we go through divorce, is like that piece of saying, all right, I'm gonna, all that self-doubt, and come on, society told me you should, your religion told you, I mean, for sure, whatever spiritual beliefs, no, you got to be married, you got to stay married forever, you got to love good times or bad times, or if she hates you, or somehow you have to live the rest of your life with this person you don't even like anymore.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you don't recognize how much things are ingrained in you, whether or not you believe them, whether or not you agree with them, whether or not you want to live by them. You don't realize how much they're ingrained with you until you really push back against that societal norm, that societal belief. And I'll give you another example of how that happened at the gym, which is why that ended up, again, getting thrown over the fence. Is, she was a big part of the gym as well. As we were growing, she was the design person. I will fully admit, like, her design, without her capabilities as far as design and all that went, the gym would be a gray box, and it would have
Right.
been ugly. Yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
very ugly.
Yeah.
So she was a big part of all that, for sure. So she was around a lot. She worked out whenever, we had classes and things like that. She came to know a lot of the people. And when we separated, people started choosing sides. And some people were, not talking kindly about me,
Yeah.
and made it very challenging and awkward. We had a bunch of people leave because they didn't believe in what was happening. Uh, Ironically, the loudest mouths of the group were people who had been separated and had gone through divorces. So because I exposed themselves to
Yeah.
themselves, they were angry about it. And it was just tough, man. And it created this weird environment. And I was afraid that was going to happen. I had a feeling that was going to happen, but I believed we could push through it. But it just got to a point where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm in high school again. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And that was a big part of why the gym, I was just like, this just needs to move along. But yeah, that was like literally those norms were being thrown in my face. Like, you can't do this. This is not something you should do. You should keep trying. You should keep moving forward. And it was like right there. And that was a hard one to overcome. But you don't recognize how much you live by societal norms until you push back against them.
Well, and today I kind of look back and wonder, I wonder what would happen if my marriage had I gotten sober there earlier, right? I mean, my previous marriage, maybe look, if I had the language I have today back then, maybe I could have been stayed married, right? I didn't have this language, or I didn't have these possibilities. And, I think that's one of the ones where why I got into podcast is like, look, I want to inspire more of these conversations. Say, hey, look, we can all work on things. And a lot of us didn't have the best upbringing, and the journey for us. And actually the adventure is, when I work here, when the same statement is, I want to change the world, right? But no one wants to change themselves, right? When I start with, I want to change me the most, right? And eventually, like, who can I become, right? This has become this game of like, who do I get to become, and what else can I work on? How extreme can you get with your health? How far can you get with the way you talk? How, what are things you can learn, right? If that becomes the adventure, the what happens to the world starts to change, right? And I kind of wonder, when you look back over the marriage and go, all right, how am I accountable for what happened in that marriage? And I look at my marriage and go, look, my drinking was definitely accountability. My actions, my thought, actions, behaviors, my drinking, my, womanizing, my cheating, all of that stuff led to huge amounts of shame. That just was, I, I, I couldn't even look at it anymore because I was just, I had just lied so much. Right. And it got to a point where, all right, I could see I have accountability in that. And that's hard to admit, right? Like I caused that. And maybe there was some other stuff that she had in there that, look, I'm not looking to blame her, but I could say it takes two to tango. Like you said, there's definitely two of us in that relationship. What caused those wandering off to find a place to find joy, right? Like if I couldn't find joy in the relationship, all of a sudden I started going somewhere else to find it. And then I started drinking because I start realizing that behaviors, when we do bad things, we don't want to feel that. We know we're doing bad things, right? And then my drinking kicks up a notch, right? No matter how much I drink, I can't stuff the shame away. So look, it's that's a fun game to play with. Not necessarily, it doesn't feel fun when you're talking about it sometimes, but in there, I now have agency to go look at my marriage today, right? What I don't want to do is drag those behaviors into this marriage, right? Today, if I'm accountable for creating love and play, and it's not her fault, right? It's my creation. And I can find myself going, if she just would dance a little more, I could. And look, it's really easy to point outwards at my wife when things don't go well. And look, I want to. By the way, I want to point at anybody but me, right? I'm not taking this shit. Look, it's not my fault. It's got to be all your fault, right? The economy's bad. And those damn political people are bad. And look, it can't be me. I don't want to face that, right? But the truth is, this is my matrix. Right. If everything in my matrix I caused, right. Like that extreme ownership of my matrix, right. If all the thoughts, action, behaviors got me to this podcast with you in this moment, I imagine this is all made up and I've made it, right. How could I, if I want to go make something else up, what do I have to do to get there? And I think that's part of that fun, challenge.
Well, and I would add on to that. I can't perfect that anymore. That was very well said, by the way. I would add on to that you won't have a different outcome the next time around unless you do that work. Unless you decide to look inward and figure out what your part in that was. Again, being a male, that was the hardest part for me. I think I say that because I think males in general have a hard time doing that. What part did I play in this? So being that, I had to look at that and go, okay, yeah, it's easy for me to go, she did this, she did that, she did this, she did that. And in any relationship, in any circumstance, it's easy for that victimhood mentality to come up. And here's the thing, all of it is true. All of it's true, very much so. The question is, do you want to create a life or do you want to let life happen to you? Do you want to make life happen for you or do you want to let life happen to you? If you keep that mentality and you keep that moving forward, it will happen to you. It will not be created for you. If you want to create a life and you want to build something for yourself, then you start to look at yourself and you go, okay, that's fine. That's all true. That's good. That's up to her to decide what to do with that. What am I going to do with what I did? What did I do? And then you start to look and you start to peel back the layers. And over time, those layers will slowly come undone, and you'll see another layer and another layer. And as they get exposed, they hurt, they suck. It's no fun. You dig deeper and you keep peeling back, and you're like, damn, there's another layer, and you keep going. But when you do the work, like I told a friend the other day, I'm like, I've been in personal development for a long time. I've improved myself for a long time. I've been working on myself for purposefully for, probably 15 years or so. But I feel like I grew more in the last 12 to 18 months going through this than I probably did during that whole time doing personal development, because it was hard. It was challenging. It was something that I chose to do, a hardship I literally created in my life. Two things stacked on top of each other. And then on the other end of it, I chose to do the work to figure out what my part in that was, and then how I could get better based on my part in all of that. Not my bonus part. What were all the good things that I did? I tried to think about those things too, but it was, what were the things that I did that caused this to not work? And as much as it sucks, as much as it hurts, as much as it's not fun, you will end up in the same scenario, the same exact scenario, hands down. Even if it's a different person or a different business, you'll end up in the same scenario if you don't do that work.
That's right. It's if I keep acting the way I've been acting, it's insanity, right? If I keep doing what I've been doing, I keep getting what I've been getting. If I want to go somewhere else, that's the extreme ownership of it. The more extreme I can get of ownership of it, the more I get to do it. And then if I start to embrace the struggle, right, and go, all right, in the struggle area, in the growing of it, there is the thing. And I've often said, I wish life was easier, but today I pray to be stronger, right? And I think that in that strength, right, in that strength of trudging through that stuff, the truth is, I feel healthier, right? When I go to the gym and I tear down those muscles, when I get up and go to work and I don't feel like it, right? When I reach over to my kids who are hurting and I'm tired, and I'm like, I don't want to make another call and get my, right? When I reach out to a friend who I know, I remember, hey, a friend yesterday said he was going through a tough time. I remind myself, when I push myself to give more to this planet, the gifts that come back seem to be abundant, right? I feel like I get them back tenfold, right? There's something about working through that. Maybe it's that old expression, that old example that I think we talked about it before, was when I get out and I push my own car when it breaks down on the side of the road, everybody tries to help me. But if I sit in the car and wait for help, right, it may be a long time. I may get lucky and have the tow truck company show up, but right, when I get out there and start pushing, all of a sudden there's 10 people out there pushing with me. And it seems like that's how life is, right? The more we get out and start doing the work, and in doing the work, even when we feel like an idiot, right? Because doing some of the work, I have to step over into idiotness, right? Where I feel like an idiot, right? Because I don't know what I'm doing. If I knew what I was doing, I'd be doing it, right? But now I have to step over and go in the gym. Or I have to step over and start eating right. I have to step over and start communicating differently, right? Here, I try to give up cussing for a year, right? I've struggled with that, right? Like my whole goal was to say, here, what would life be like if I didn't cuss? Right? Like, could I get creative communication without cussing, right? Because cussing for me was like this sport, right? What would life be like if all of a sudden I got to find some new words to use, right? How can I make communication creative and let it go of all the cuss words, right? And, and that same parameter, that same paradigm is true in my business life, right? And becoming an airline or becoming a pilot, becoming a podcaster. Look, we can apply that to every new venture or adventure we go on together.
For sure. And to go back to your stepping into it, choosing to do it, choosing to take those steps. There was a book, I forget the name of the book, but a book that basically went over people's biggest regrets on their deathbed.
Sure.
And the biggest regrets essentially are not taking risk, not doing what you wanted to do, not being more yourself, like those kinds of things. All the things that, number one, society tells us to stay away from. Don't take risks, be safe, don't be yourself. Like
Yeah.
repress yourself, don't express yourself. Not that I'm saying go express yourself and be some, wackadoo, whatever, but like just being who you are and being okay being who you are. And if you think about the decisions that you make, even potentially on a day-to-day basis, like skipping the gym, for instance, how many times have people skipped the gym and then gone, yes, I'm glad I skipped the gym today? Most of the time you skip the gym and you're like, man, I shouldn't have skipped the gym today. And you feel bad about it. You regret it. And those things that you should do, like you always end up regretting not trying them, not doing them, not stepping into them. Those hard things, those challenging things. Like I feel like we keep coming back to this, but it's for a reason. And it's because that's the work. The work is the challenge. And the challenge is the improvement. And that is the building of life and not the happening of life.
Well, when you talk about going to the gym, this morning was like that for me. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. I got up, I was going to the gym. Today's workout I call there's a better than nothing workout, right? You get those, like a better than nothing workout. I was tired. I worked out all 4 days before, Monday through for Thursday. I was a little sore this morning. I probably could use a recovery day, but I was like, you know what? Let me go think of what body part I hadn't worked on this week. I've been working, this appendix thing on there. I'm going to do a really light core workout, right? I'm going to start because I haven't been able to do core workout because of the appendix. And so today I just literally went as lightweight as possible, stayed in the fairway, didn't do anything pushing it far. I got some legs in there, but it was a better than nothing workout, right? And there, I definitely on the backside of that, feel better, right? I mean, like it wasn't my biggest workout. I didn't walk out of the gym going, "Oh, look at you," right? It was a better than nothing workout, but maybe that's what sometimes that is all it has to be. It doesn't have to be the monumental 6-pack abs. Here I am, Hercules. Hear me roar. It might just be better than nothing.
Right? Oh, for sure. Yeah. I called that the grease the groove workout. Like just go in, move around, do something, grease that body up, get it moving, make sure it's still moving well, and do it. And you will always feel better after the fact. Another thing we had at the gym, we had the 10-minute rule. And the 10-minute rule was essentially like, most people after work especially don't feel like going to the gym, but it's not because you don't actually want to go to the gym. It's just because you just have that mental fog about you and you just don't feel like going. Like, fine. So show up to the gym, stay there for 10 minutes. And if you don't feel like working out after 10 minutes, then leave. And guess what? Every time people stay, because once you actually get there, you get moving, you get doing something, then you feel like it. Then you actually want to do it. But if you let your mind and your feelings take control of you, you have to know the difference between what you're talking about. Like, my body needs a recovery day. My body needs to not have this high intensity workout versus I just don't feel like doing it.
Well, I try not to negotiate with my mind in the morning. Okay, look,
Good.
Fred in my head,
Fred.
He's a jackass, right? Fred's, Fred in the morning will make every morning, well, it's a recovery day. So if I say the night before I'm going to work out, so let's talk about some of those things. I feel like I have to trick Fred, right? There's I have to trick my brain into doing some of those things. Look, the 10-minute thing you just talked about, I think that's a great one, right? Look, just go to the gym for 10 minutes. Like if you're going to do a quick 10-minute workout, but just get there. And then you get there and then all of a sudden, now I want to work out, right? Or, I have one for getting out of the bed. I have 3, 2, 1, legs over the bed, right? I got that from that female astronaut. She wrote a great book, and it's like 3, 2, 1, legs over the bed, and that worked, right? Like that got me to my sneakers, and getting my sneakers gets me to the gym, and right. So those are like little tricks. Do you have any other little tricks that you use to get moving or to motivate?
Lots. So I think people underappreciate Jedi mind tricks. That's what I like to call them, because they're like, well, that's all you're doing is playing a trick on your mind. Well, yeah, that's what it is. That's the point is you're playing a trick on your mind. You have to understand that your mind's not always right. Actually, rarely is it right. And rarely should you actually follow what it's trying to get you to do, because the mind is meant to preserve energy. Like, your body wants to preserve energy. So that's what it's constantly going to try and do. Like when you're laying in bed and it feels good, nice and warm, like that's because your body wants to be there and be comfortable and just lay there and not do anything. So Jedi mind tricks are a very useful tool to getting you to do something. So a couple of other ones. One that I like is called an implementation intention. And this is more of a set it up in the beginning and then follow through kind of thing. Implementation intention is basically an if then statement. So if then this happens, then I will do this. This is if if you're going to run into a problem, this is how you would fix it. So many people will skip the gym if, say, their schedule gets changed or they have to stay late to the gym, and they'll just skip instead of actually go. Well, if you have to stay late at work, then I'm still going to go to the gym, and then I'll work out for 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes. If I suddenly have to take the kids to practice, to soccer practice in the afternoon, then I will wake up early in the morning and go to the gym in the morning instead of in the evening. So you're literally setting yourself up for success by building in some pitfalls, if you will, if some things happen, because things are going to happen. Like, it's going to happen. You're going to have days where you work longer. You're going to have days where suddenly you have to go pick the kids up at a different time. You're going to have days where something happens and it throws your schedule off. So if you have some implementation intentions, some if then statements, and you set yourself up to know that challenges are going to happen, then you're more likely to follow through. Then I know if this scenario happens, which it does regularly, I've already got a plan for what I'm going to do next. Most people are like, well, I just won't go. But you're trying, the goal is to set yourself up for success so that you can follow through and become the kind of person that continues to follow through with your word.
That's right. Where there's no struggle, there is no strength. Jerry, I love having you on. The Good Wolf Project is the name of the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please go over and let's support Jerry. Like and subscribe his podcast. Please go over there and give him some love like we do for all of our friends. And let's make sure that we continue to grow, right? We continue to embrace the struggle, right? Have it be here for us, right? Have it be the piece that life is happening for us, not to us, right?
Most definitely. That's what I believe this is all about. You got one life, you got one shot that we know of, that we're certain of. So do you want to make the best of it? Or do you want to let it kind of just pass you by and end up like the people who have regrets at the end of their life? I should have tried more. I should have taken more risk and all of that. So the choice is yours. You get to choose today. It's scary. It's challenging. But I believe it's worth it. And I appreciate being able to be here and talk to you about it all, Anthony, and have two great conversations back to back for sure.
We will continue more and more of them. Jerry Scarlato, I am so appreciative of you and your podcast and us getting to meet each other. It's been a pleasure. I will make sure that we put all your contact stuff down below. Audience members, please, let's go support our friends out there. Hey, audience members, can you do me a favor? Last week we had 35,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is amazing, right? It blow me away. I mean, what's happening there? But I noticed that a lot of you guys made it through the watching the video, and you weren't subscribers. If you could take a second and like and subscribe, it means the world to Alyssa and Joe and our whole team that they work tirelessly on putting this podcast together and getting me great guests like Jerry out there. So if you can, please, 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 right now, take a second and go like and subscribe and tell your friends about it. Post up, put a post up there. We are really just so proud of the growth we're having and all the guests that we're having. And so please take a second and do that now. I will be forever appreciative. And as always, thanks for listening.